Hello and welcome to the Efficio podcast. This is episode 5 in our series looking at the issues of the COVID crisis and how they've impacted procurement and supply chain. And today our attention turns to the category of chemicals, and I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague Wolfgang. So Wolfgang, for benefit of our listeners, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, hi Simon, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Wolfgang and I've been working for Efficio for a very long time. I'm a principal at Efficio and I specialize for a big part of my consulting time and life on categories such as chemical industry and pharmaceutical industry. And today's podcast will be on the impact of COVID-19 on the chemical industry.
Brilliant. And what are you seeing? So what has been the impact so far?
In general, the impact has been quite dramatic. We've seen obviously price drops of anywhere between 5% to 30% in different types of chemicals. We've also seen a couple of price hikes. In general, the sector is down. It usually follows quite with a little bit of a time lag. It follows the oil price and oil sector. And as we know, oil prices have dramatically dropped. So chemicals are following. Ethylene, propylene, benzene, those have seen drops up to 40, 50% and even more. We've seen also a couple of upwards, as I said, shifts or price hikes, and those are interestingly, obviously, chemicals that are used in anything that is made or that is used to make sanitary products, such as hand sanitizers. You've seen price hikes, for example, in certain alcohols, IPA, for example, glycerine, and some of those chemicals where we are now facing clear shortages. The main impact is coming from the demand side as key industries such as the automotive industry, textile industries, and other industries are just shutting down production or have shut down production. And that just leads to the fact that there is a decreased demand in many of the chemicals, that decreased demand in many base and specialty chemicals, I would say.
Yeah. And for our listeners and procurement professionals, what should they be doing to kind of focus on managing this through the crisis, managing this category?
What we can advise is basically, maybe I can split this down into 3 different, let's say, short-term, mid-term, and long-term approaches or strategies. And while clearly, I think the short-term, and people have been doing this, our clients have been doing this, is focusing on just managing the crisis and getting through it, which consists of things such as ensuring your critical supply, ensuring that your main suppliers are able to deliver, ensuring that you unlock some of those logistics problems I've been talking about, ensuring you've got visibility on, let's say, what impact your border crossings or shipping line disruptions have on your supply chain, and reacting on that actually. On the supply chain side, and then on the commercial side, what I see is that what we can or should or have to benefit as, or if you're a category manager, you should look at your commercials, you should benefit or profit from, some spot buys. Obviously, the spot markets have dropped dramatically, even beyond markets where your prices may be indexed to, contract indices. But right now, our spot prices are very much down. So if you can, take advantage of that just to make sure you buy for the best possible price, then you should, at this point, really analyze markets well and look whether you can get hold of some, spot quantities. So that's sort of the short term. I think, and that's actually ongoing, and the next couple of weeks or months, 1-2 months, I think that situation will prevail. In the midterm, and I'm talking about 2 to 6 months roughly as a time frame. I think there's 2 or 3 important things to do. The first one is obviously, stay very attentive to the markets, observe the markets, make sure you talk to your suppliers, make sure you know about what is changing in your supply chain. And that you can only do by really having a very close conversation with your suppliers. The reality is changing for category managers. The reality is changing for your suppliers as well. So know what's going on so that you can actually draft some midterm strategies on this basis. Now, the second thing, I think what is also important to look at in the next 2 to 6 months is to sort of perform a risk assessment of your supply base and your chemical supply chain. We will see that many suppliers and even, smaller suppliers that have let's say a smaller capital base, they will potentially struggle financially. So it is important that you sort of perform those financial health checks of your supply chain and suppliers, that you document the risk that this is bringing into your supply chain, and that you start identifying alternative sources. I think we'll see in the chemical sector in the next couple of, and even beyond the 6-month timeframe, we'll see a lot of companies actually trying to redefine their sources and making sure that they de-risk their supply chain by actually opening up and not consolidating. So opening up sources and looking at alternatives to your current sources. So third thing, I think, again, back to the commercials, I think once you're through the immediate crisis, what is important is re-looking at your contract, reassessing volume commitments you may have for the rest of the year and negotiating those with suppliers. So more on the tactical side, tactical negotiations, negotiating payment terms, obviously, to make sure you have a good and solid agreement with your suppliers on when they should be paid. We've, for example, seen a lot of situations where in China suppliers were only shipping if they were paid in advance. So things like that, you should make sure that you negotiate those in the midterm, and so you can actually be set up in the midterm for a recovery phase, which may, as I said, take us through the end of the year or even the beginning of next year. And then on the long-term front, I think, and that will take definitely beyond and will take us well into 2021, is actually to make sure you make your supply chain more resilient overall. So one thing that will be important, we've seen that in the crisis, is how important digitalization is becoming, and digital view of your contracts, digital view of your engagements and your commitments, a digital and very fast view on what's happening in the supply chain, such as logistic route disruptions, etc., is, and we've seen that those have been very important points in companies who were set up to actually have this sort of information available at a click almost. They were clearly an advantage and were clearly, let's say, able to react a lot quicker to this crisis. So what I think we'll see a lot of in the future is a lot of companies re-looking at digitalization and making sure how they can, if the next crisis comes along or next disruption comes along, how they can be actually in a very fast interaction mode with their key suppliers, how they can be monitoring inventory levels and so on and so forth, without having to go through data exercises that are interminable. So this is sort of the long-term strategy, and I think something that will probably take people a little longer than the next 6 months.
Wolfgang, thank you so much. That has been fascinating, very insightful comments on what is a challenging category that's clearly been significantly impacted by this crisis. So thank you so much for your time. It's very much appreciated. For those people listening, thank you also. If you have any questions based on the things that we talked about today, please let either myself or Wolfgang know. But as I say, thank you so much. And our next podcast talking about our next category will be released in due course. Thank you very much.